The stars stretched across the sky like silver threads woven into the endless black fabric of the universe. On the bridge of the starship Aurora, Captain Lyra HFY watched the lights of the distant galaxy shimmer through the reinforced glass. It was quiet here, too quiet for her liking. She ran a hand through her hair and thought about the warning they had received from the Galactic Council just hours ago. Humans must not interfere with the Lumerian Veil. The laws older than the stars themselves forbid it. Lyra's gaze shifted to the human who had sparked the Council's concern, Jaren Voss. He was leaning against a control panel, fingers drumming lightly as if keeping time with some invisible melody. Unlike most humans who adapted slowly to starship life, Jaren thrived in it. His eyes gleamed with curiosity that the Council often misunderstood as recklessness. But Lyra knew better. Humanity had a way of seeing things others ignored, and sometimes that made the impossible possible. "Do you think we'll find it?" Jaren asked, his voice low but filled with an eagerness that seemed almost contagious. "Find what?" Lyra replied without turning. "The source of the Veil's pulse," he said, motioning vaguely toward the distant nebula on the ship's viewing screen, the energy that made the Council so nervous. "I can feel it even from here," Lyra sighed. Humans and their instincts. Most of her crew would have been content to follow orders, to stay away from danger, to obey the laws of the universe as the Council dictated. But humans, especially Jaren, never settled. They whispered to the stars, and somehow the stars listened. The ship hummed softly as it adjusted its course. Sensors pinged quietly, scanning the empty darkness between galaxies. For centuries, explorers had charted the safe paths, the well-traveled lanes where nothing unexpected happened. But this mission wasn't about safe paths. It was about the unknown, the forbidden, the laws older than the stars themselves. "Captain," said Ensign Ryla, her voice tense as she studied her console. "The Veil's pulse is stronger than the Council reported. It's reacting to something in the ship?" Lyra turned, narrowing her eyes. "Something in the ship? You mean Jaren?" Jaren grinned. "You sound jealous, Captain." Lyra gave a short, amused laugh. "I mean, you may be drawing attention we don't want." The Council's warning wasn't a suggestion. He shrugged. "Then maybe they're wrong." Lyra shook her head. She had long ago learned that arguing with a human over instinct was futile. Instead, she focused on the sensors. The readings were unmistakable. A series of pulses emanated from deep within the Lumerian Veil, waves of energy that bent the space around them like invisible hands shaping clay. "The Veil isn't just a barrier," she said quietly, mostly to herself. "It's alive in some way. It reacts. Then it's waiting for someone to listen," Jaren said, leaning closer. His voice lowered, almost a whisper. "And humans. Humans know how to listen differently." Lyra felt the weight of those words. They had traveled across countless star systems, seen phenomena no one else had. But she had never encountered anything like this. A force older than the stars themselves, and now it seemed it had noticed them. Hours passed in silence, punctuated only by the soft hum of the ship and the occasional alert from the navigation console. Lyra tried to keep her mind on the mission, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the Council's warning. Laws older than the stars were not made lightly. They existed because someone or something had once broken them, and when such laws were broken, the consequences were never small. As they approached the outer edge of the veil, the ship began to shake subtly, like a leaf caught in a slow, invisible wind. The lights flickered and the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Jaren, however, seemed unaffected. He walked calmly to the main observation window, placing a hand against the glass. "Do you hear that?" he asked softly. Lyra frowned. "Hear what?" "The whisper," he said. "The veil. It's trying to speak." She studied his face. Humans often imagined things the sensors couldn't detect. But then the lights on the console began to flash erratically, and the hum of the ship deepened into a resonant tone that vibrated through her chest. The whisper wasn't a sound. It was a feeling, a presence, something ancient, aware, and intelligent. Lyra's stomach tightened. If the Council's warning had been about anything real, it was this. And yet, she couldn't shake the pull toward it. "Captain," Jaren said, eyes bright. "It wants to communicate. I can feel it. I think it trusts us." Lyra's hand hovered over the command panel. She knew that if she followed this instinct, they could break the laws the Council had sworn were eternal. But she also knew something the Council had forgotten. Humans thrived on risk, on choice, on the belief that intelligence and courage could shape fate itself. "Very well," she said, her voice steady despite the tension curling in her chest. "We proceed. But cautiously. Any misstep and we pull back immediately." Jaren nodded solemnly, but inside a spark of excitement danced. The whisper of the veil was no longer just a mystery. It was an invitation. The ship moved deeper into the luminous clouds, the stars outside dimming beneath the dense, shimmering mist. Pulses of energy brushed against the hull, gentle but insistent, as if testing their resolve. The air seemed charged, alive with an ancient memory that predated everything they had ever known. Ensign Ryla broke the silence, her voice almost trembling. "Captain, the readings. They're forming patterns, symbols. But they aren't any language I know." Lyra bent over the console, studying the strange formations. They were intricate, complex, impossible to ignore. And yet when Jaren's hand hovered above the controls, the symbols seemed to shift slightly, aligning themselves into something that almost made sense. "You see," Jaren said softly. "It understands that we understand it. We don't need words. We need presence, attention, patience." The rest of the crew exchanged nervous glances. The laws older than the stars weren't just a suggestion, they were a guarantee of order. Breaking them could mean anything: exile, cosmic judgment, or worse. And yet here they were, teetering on the edge of the unknown, led by a human whose courage and intuition defied every protocol. Hours blurred into days as the Aurora moved carefully through the veil. The whisper became clearer, more insistent, guiding them through a labyrinth of luminous clouds and invisible currents. Every turn revealed new wonders. Floating crystal formations that sang when touched by the ship's energy, streams of light that moved like living creatures, and enormous shadowed forms in the distance that seemed aware of the ship's passage. Then, just when hope and fear balanced precariously together, the veil parted like a curtain. Beyond it lay a sight that no map, no council, no legend had ever hinted at. A massive structure, suspended in the void, glowing with the light of 1,000 stars. It pulsed rhythmically as though breathing, and at its center was a sphere of radiant energy that hummed with intelligence. Lyora's breath caught. This is it. This is what the council tried to hide." Jaren's eyes sparkled. "And it's been waiting for us." The ship hovered at the edge of the sphere's influence. The whisper became louder, more defined, filling the minds of the crew with impressions rather than words. Curiosity, patience, hope. It was alive. It was aware. And somehow it had chosen to speak to humans. Lyra knew they were standing on the edge of history. The Council's law, older than the stars themselves, had warned against this, yet the human before her had bridged the gap between the impossible and the real. Jaren had done what no other species could. He had listened, and now the veil waited, silent but patient, for the next step. Somewhere deep inside, Lyra felt the weight of consequence pressing against her. But alongside it was a thrill she had not felt since she first set foot among the stars. The whisper was a promise and a challenge, and only humans, bold, reckless, hopeful, could rise to meet it. The first step had been taken. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer, eager to witness what humans would do next. The Aurora drifted closer to the radiant sphere suspended in the void. Its glow pulsed gently, casting ribbons of light across the ship's metallic hull. The crew moved cautiously, their eyes wide with wonder, as if approaching something both sacred and impossibly ancient. Lyra Kale felt the weight of history pressing in on them. Every instinct screamed that they were crossing a boundary that had existed since time itself began. Jaren Voss, however, was unafraid. He walked to the observation window, his hand lightly, brushing the glass as if reaching toward the heart of the stars. "It's alive," he whispered, his voice reverent. "I can feel it thinking, feeling, waiting." Lyra studied him closely. Humans had a way of sensing things that other species could not. Their curiosity was relentless, their courage, bordering on recklessness, yet it was often that very courage that uncovered truths long hidden. She took a deep breath and decided to trust it. For now, prepare an external probe, she ordered. "We need data, but no sudden moves. We are guests here." The crew nodded, their tension evident but their excitement barely contained. Ensign Rila guided the probe carefully out of the ship, sensors glowing as it approached the sphere. The moment it touched the radiant surface, the veil responded. Pulses of energy rippled outward, brushing against the ship like invisible fingers. "Captain," Rila said, voice shaking slightly. "The sphere, it's reacting to the probe, but not aggressively. It's acknowledging it. It's almost welcoming it." Jaren smiled, as if he had expected this all along. "It knows we mean no harm," he said. "It understands curiosity. It respects it." Lyora's eyes narrowed. The Council's warnings replayed in her mind. Laws older than the stars themselves exist for a reason. Do not provoke them. And yet, here they were, in the presence of one of those very mysteries, and it seemed to welcome them. For hours the crew observed the sphere. The veil around it shimmered with colors no eye could name, forming patterns that seemed both random and deliberate. Every pulse of light felt like a heartbeat, and every heartbeat spoke in a language humans had always known, even before they could speak, the language of wonder, curiosity, and hope. Jaren moved closer to the sphere, his hand hovering just above the ship's console. "It wants to communicate," he said softly. "I can feel its thoughts, its questions. It's asking about us." Lyora's stomach tightened. "Questions?" she repeated. "How can it ask questions without words?" "Because it doesn't need words," Jaren said. "It speaks in ideas, in intentions, in understanding. Humans, we can listen that way." The captain felt a mix of fear and admiration. To interact with something that existed before stars, that had likely witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, was both exhilarating and terrifying. And yet, the human before her, this human, was bridging a gap no one else could. Suddenly, the sphere pulsed brighter, and the patterns in the veil shifted. The ship's sensors recorded data at an impossible rate, struggling to keep up with the flow of information. Every crew member felt the subtle pull of the energy, a gentle tug at their thoughts and memories. "Captain, it's showing us visions," Rila said, her voice trembling. Images flashed across the holographic screens, galaxies forming, civilizations rising and fading, beings of light moving among stars long gone. "It's history," she whispered. "All of it." Jaren's eyes were wide with awe. "It's not just history," he said. "It's perspective. It's teaching us how small and large we truly are." Lyora swallowed hard. She realized that they were witnessing knowledge far beyond the understanding of any single species. And yet, instead of feeling fear, she felt hope. A rare, pure hope that humans had always carried within them. The veil's pulse grew stronger, and the sphere seemed to shift subtly, aligning itself with the ship as if inviting them closer. Jaren stepped forward. "It wants us to touch it," he said, his hand reaching toward the air above the control console. "Jaren, wait," Lyora called. "We don't know what will happen if you—" But Jaren ignored her warning. His fingers brushed the edge of the console, and in that instant, a wave of energy passed through the ship. The lights dimmed, the hum deepened, and every crew member felt a rush of understanding, as if the sphere had opened its mind to them. Images and sensations flooded their thoughts. Lyora saw the rise of stars, the formation of worlds, and the silent dance of civilizations long vanished. But amid it all, one message emerged clearly. Humans are observers, learners, and changers. You are different. You are brave. You are capable of hearing the whispers that others cannot. Rila gasped. "Captain, it's teaching us, sharing wisdom we've never imagined." Lyora steadied herself. The law older than the stars themselves had warned against interference, yet this felt different. The sphere was not demanding obedience or punishing curiosity. It was offering understanding, and humans, with their boundless curiosity, were the only species capable of receiving it. Jaren's face glowed with excitement. "See? They've waited for us, the veil. It trusts us." As the ship hovered near the sphere, Lyra realized the enormity of what they were experiencing. The Council's laws were meant to protect civilizations from arrogance, from fear, from misunderstanding. But humans were not like other species. They listened, they questioned, and above all, they dared. And sometimes, that daring allowed them to touch the impossible. Hours passed like minutes. The Veil's pulse became a rhythm that synced with the human heartbeats aboard the Aurora. They learned to sense its intentions, to predict its movements, and to interact with it without fear. Then, as if recognizing their trust and courage, the sphere opened a passage of light, a corridor stretching into a place that existed outside conventional space and time. "It's inviting us in," Jaren said, voice trembling with excitement. "It wants us inside. It wants to show us more." Lyra hesitated. Every instinct screamed caution. The law exists for a reason. This is forbidden. We could be crossing a boundary that no species has survived. And yet she looked at Jaren, at the way his human courage and curiosity shone like a beacon, and she felt something shift inside her. "Very well," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We proceed, but we proceed carefully. We honor its trust, and we do not provoke it." The crew nodded, following her lead as the Aurora entered the corridor of light. The ship moved with deliberate care, sensors recalibrating to an environment that defied conventional physics. Time seemed fluid here. Moments stretched and contracted unpredictably. The stars outside were no longer visible, replaced by a cascade of colors and forms that suggested thought made manifest. As they traveled, Jaren whispered to the Veil, sharing his thoughts and intentions, asking questions and seeking answers. And with each whispered word, the corridor pulsed brighter, guiding them forward. Then, unexpectedly, the Veil shifted. Shadows formed within the light, shapes that suggested awareness, intelligence, and curiosity. They were not hostile, but they were deliberate, observing every movement of the ship. Lyra felt a chill. The law older than the stars themselves had always warned that intelligence older than time could be unpredictable. Jaren sensed it immediately. "They're not dangerous," he said softly. "They're curious, like us. They want to know why we are here, what we intend, what humans are capable of." Lyra realized he was right. Humans had always faced the unknown with questions, not weapons. And in that, they were different. In that, they were remarkable. As the Aurora moved deeper into the corridor, the crew felt a growing connection with the Veil. The whispers became a symphony of understanding, hope, and challenge. They learned not only about the universe's past, but about its future, the possibilities humans could unlock if they dared to act with courage, wisdom, and curiosity. At last, the corridor opened into a vast chamber of radiant energy. The sphere hovered at its center, larger and more intricate than before, and surrounding it were countless smaller forms of light, each pulsing with knowledge, curiosity, and intent. Lyra looked at Jaren. This is beyond anything the Council ever imagined." He smiled. "They thought humans would obey. They didn't realize humans could listen. And in that moment, Lyra understood. The law older than the stars themselves had been broken, not by recklessness, not by violence, but by the quiet, persistent courage of a human whisper. The chamber pulsed in response, a rhythm that matched the hearts of the crew. They had crossed the threshold, entered a place that existed before time, and the universe itself seemed to lean closer, eager to see what humans would do next. The first step was taken, and the next steps promised wonders, challenges, and revelations that would test everything they believed about courage, intelligence, and hope. The stars outside were distant now, almost forgotten, but their light had not gone. It had guided humanity to this moment, a moment that would be remembered for all time. And somewhere in the Veil, ancient eyes watched and waited, curious about what humans could achieve when they chose to listen, to understand, and to act. The chamber of radiant energy stretched beyond the limits of comprehension. Each pulse of light seemed to contain entire galaxies, entire histories, and entire civilizations. The Aurora floated in the center, a small metallic vessel dwarfed by the immensity surrounding it. The crew's eyes widened at every turn, their minds struggling to process the visions cascading from the sphere. Jaren Voss stood at the observation deck, his hands lightly pressed against the glass, his face glowing with awe. "It's showing us possibilities," he whispered. "Not just the past, not just the present, but what could be. The universe as it might be, if humans choose carefully." Captain Lyra HFY felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. She had expected wonder, but not this. The chamber seemed alive, aware of every thought, every hesitation. It tested them without threat, questioned them without words, and challenged them without fear. Ensign Rila tapped her console nervously. "Captain, the patterns of light—" "They're forming sequences now, I think it wants us to interact with it in a specific way. It's not just showing, it's asking." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then we need to understand its intent. Jaren, focus. Listen carefully. Ask questions with your mind, not your voice. Show it we are worthy." Jaren closed his eyes and let his thoughts flow freely, opening his mind in a way no other species aboard the ship could manage. The lights shifted, pulsing faster, brighter, forming symbols that seemed alive, moving as if they were thoughts themselves. The Veil's intelligence was guiding them, inviting them to participate. Hours passed in this silent communion. The crew of the Aurora felt time stretch and compress like the rhythm of the chamber itself was rewriting reality around them. And then, suddenly, the sphere projected a vision more detailed than any before. It was a planet, lush and vibrant, orbiting a star older than most in their galaxy. Cities of crystalline structures glimmered under multiple moons. Streams of liquid light flowed through its valleys, and beings of radiant energy moved harmoniously across the surface. It was a civilization untouched by fear, greed, or conflict, one that had embraced curiosity, wisdom, and unity. "It's showing us what's possible," Jaren said softly, his eyes fixed on the vision. "A future where intelligence and courage create beauty instead of destruction." Lyra felt a lump in her throat. "And the Council forbade this, because they feared humans might fail." Jaren shook his head. "No, they feared anyone might fail. But humans, we have a way of rising to challenges that others don't. That's why it's responding to us." The chamber pulsed as if affirming his words. Then the sphere shifted again, and the lights coalesced into something new. A maze of energy threads, crisscrossing and intertwining like the roots of a vast cosmic tree. Each path seemed to present a choice, a challenge, a test of understanding. "It wants us to navigate it," Rila whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "It's not just showing possibilities. It's asking us to prove we can act wisely." Lyra drew in a deep breath. "Then we proceed. Carefully, step by step. Everyone stay focused. Jaren, lead with insight, not impulse." Jaren nodded and stepped forward. As he did, the threads of energy shifted, creating a path that seemed to respond to his presence. The Aurora followed, weaving through the maze with precision, guided by the intelligence of the Veil. The first challenge appeared quickly. A section of the path shimmered and split, forming multiple routes. Each one radiated a different color, pulsing with intention. Lyra consulted the ship's sensors, but they offered no guidance. The Veil's energy was beyond technology. It required understanding, intuition, and courage. Jaren extended his hand, closing his eyes. Slowly, he moved toward the path that resonated with warmth and curiosity. As he did, the threads shifted again, creating a bridge of light that allowed the ship to pass safely. The crew exhaled, realizing that human intuition was indeed the key. Hours blurred into what felt like moments. Each obstacle tested their patience, reasoning, and ability to work together. Shadows of light would appear, forming shapes that suggested fear or doubt, only to vanish when met with calm confidence. The Veil seemed to measure them not with malice but with curiosity, like a teacher observing its students. Then the most astonishing vision yet appeared. The sphere projected an image of a colossal library, filled not with books but with living threads of energy that contained knowledge of the entire universe. Stars, planets, civilizations, ideas, all woven into a tapestry that no species had ever comprehended. "It's a memory bank," Rila whispered. "Everything the universe has learned. Preserved here." Jaren's eyes sparkled. "And it's sharing it with us. Humans can understand patterns, connections, ideas in ways others cannot. This is an opportunity to learn everything the Council tried to hide." Lyra felt both awe and caution. The Council's warnings had not been idle. They feared such knowledge could corrupt or overwhelm any who were unprepared. And yet humans were different. Their resilience, adaptability, and curiosity allowed them to see not just information but meaning, purpose, and responsibility. As the ship moved through the maze, the threads of light began to twist and form shapes that suggested interaction. Some resembled doors, others bridges, and a few seemed like questions waiting for answers. Jaren reached toward one and whispered his thoughts. "We wish to learn. We wish to understand. We wish to honor what you have preserved." The threads responded instantly, opening a passage into a chamber that seemed to pulse with every heartbeat of the universe. The Aurora entered slowly, the crew holding their breath as they were surrounded by living energy. Then came the test, the true challenge of the veil. The sphere projected a scenario, showing the crew of the Aurora a world in turmoil, where a civilization faced the choice between fear and courage, stagnation and exploration. The challenge was clear. Could humans act wisely if confronted with such a moment? Could they rise above instinct and choice the universe had imposed on countless others? Jaren stepped forward instinctively. "We have to show it," he said. "Not with words, but with intent, humans. We act when we understand responsibility. We can guide this future wisely." Lyra nodded. "Then we proceed. Together. Every decision counts." They navigated the scenario carefully, using insight, collaboration, and courage to guide the outcome. Each choice they made caused the chamber to glow brighter, the threads of energy resonating with approval. Slowly they realized that the veil was not just testing them, it was teaching them. Every obstacle, every vision, every choice was designed to prepare them for understanding and responsibility. Hours, or perhaps days, passed. The chamber's light shifted from intense white to a calm, warm glow, signaling the end of the test. The veil pulsed gently as if nodding, acknowledging that the humans had proven themselves worthy. Jaren exhaled deeply, his energy still vibrating with exhilaration. "We did it," he whispered. "It trusts us now." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "We've learned much, but I have a feeling this is only the beginning." Suddenly, the chamber's light shifted, forming a single, radiant pathway leading deeper into the heart of the veil. The threads of energy shimmered, forming shapes that suggested purpose, invitation, and promise. "It wants us to follow," Rila said, awe in her voice. "There's more? Much more." Jaren's eyes gleamed. "Then we go. We have to see what comes next." Lyra felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with caution. The law older than the stars themselves had been broken, quietly, persistently, and wisely. Humans had done what no other species could. They had listened, understood, and acted with care. And now, the veil itself seemed ready to reveal secrets long hidden from the galaxy. As the Aurora moved along the glowing pathway, the crew felt a growing connection to the ancient intelligence. The whispers became more distinct, forming patterns of thought, guidance, and encouragement. Every pulse of light seemed to echo a single idea. Humans are capable of greatness when they listen, understand, and choose wisely. Lyra realized the enormity of what they were experiencing. Not only had they crossed boundaries that no other species dared, but they had done so with wisdom, patience, and courage, the qualities that defined humanity at its best. The corridor led them to an enormous structure, a lattice of light and energy that seemed to stretch into infinity, and at its center the sphere pulsed brighter than ever, radiating knowledge, history, and possibility. "It's showing us everything," Jaren whispered. "Not just what was, but what could be. And it trusts humans to decide how to use it." Lyra nodded, her heart steady but her mind racing. This was more than discovery. This was responsibility. And the humans aboard the Aurora were the first to hold it, to understand it and to carry it forward. Somewhere deep in the veil, ancient intelligence observed and waited, curious to see how humans would shape the future when given a chance to act wisely, boldly, and with understanding. The first true trial had been passed, but the universe had many more secrets to reveal, and only those willing to listen, learn, and act could hope to uncover them. And the humans aboard the Aurora, led by a whispering courage older than fear, were ready to continue. The Aurora glided deeper into the lattice of radiant energy, its hull shimmering with reflections of colors that defied description. Each pulse of light seemed alive, moving as if the structure itself were breathing, observing, and communicating simultaneously. The crew moved cautiously, aware that every choice they made could ripple across this strange, infinite space. Captain Lyra HFY held her hands lightly on the console, feeling a mixture of awe and determination. "This is unlike anything I've ever experienced," she admitted. "The Council's laws warned us, but nothing could have prepared us for this." Jaren Voss, standing beside her, smiled. "The laws didn't consider humans," he said softly. "We're different. We learn by listening, by understanding, by acting with both courage and care. That's why it trusts us." The corridor of energy began to shift as the ship advanced. Threads of light twisted into shapes that suggested doors, windows, and passageways, each one glowing with a unique rhythm. Some seemed to invite exploration, while others radiated a quiet warning. The veil was alive, and every movement of the Aurora felt like a conversation, a dance of trust between the ancient intelligence and the humans aboard. "Captain, the sphere's pulse is changing," Ensign Rila observed, her eyes wide as she studied the console. "It's responding to us, but also testing us. It's asking more than questions now, it's challenging our understanding." Lyra nodded, her mind sharpening. "Then we must proceed carefully but boldly. Humans have never shied away from the unknown. We act with awareness, and that will guide us." The first challenge appeared almost immediately. A section of the lattice split into multiple pathways, each glowing with colors that seemed to hum in harmony with the ship. Sensors offered no guidance. This was not a problem that technology could solve. It required insight, intuition, and courage. Jaren extended his hand toward the pathway that radiated a warm, inviting light. The threads of energy shifted in response, forming a bridge for the Aurora. "It's asking us to trust our instincts," he said. "Not just intellect, our hearts, our curiosity, our courage." The crew followed, moving carefully through the ever-changing corridors of light. As they progressed, they encountered visions of civilizations long vanished, worlds that had flourished and fallen, and beings of energy that seemed to exist beyond time. Each vision was a lesson, a reminder that intelligence alone was not enough. Wisdom and understanding were equally important. Hours passed as they navigated the lattice, and a sense of unity grew among the crew. The veil seemed to recognize their harmony, pulsing in rhythm with their movements and thoughts. It was as if the ancient intelligence were silently encouraging them, guiding them to the heart of its knowledge. Then, a sudden shift occurred. The threads of light collapsed and reformed into a vast chamber, larger than anything the Aurora had encountered. At its center floated a sphere of pure energy, brighter and more complex than before. Surrounding it were countless smaller spheres, each pulsing with distinct patterns of knowledge, history, and possibility. "It's incredible," Rila whispered. "I've never seen anything like it. It's alive." Jaren's eyes gleamed with excitement. "It's showing us the universe's greatest achievements, and it's asking us to understand them, not just observe them." Lyra stepped closer, studying the spheres. "Every civilization, every discovery, it's all here. The veil has preserved knowledge that even the Council has never seen, and it's giving it to us not as a gift but as a test. Can humans handle it responsibly?" The chamber pulsed gently, and a series of energy threads extended toward the Aurora, each one containing a challenge, a lesson, or a question. One thread showed a planet at the brink of disaster, requiring a choice that could determine the fate of its inhabitants. Another depicted a civilization flourishing peacefully, illustrating the results of wise decisions over generations. Jaren reached toward the threads with his mind, opening himself to the veil's guidance. Slowly, the crew began to understand the nature of the test. The veil was not simply offering knowledge. It was revealing the responsibility that came with understanding. Humans were being asked to learn not only facts but how to apply them wisely. As they progressed through the challenges, the veil introduced a new element: reflection. Each crew member was confronted with visions of themselves, their choices, and their potential. It was as if the ancient intelligence sought to teach them that understanding the universe required understanding themselves first. Lyra saw herself as a young cadet, uncertain and cautious yet determined to explore. She saw the decisions that had brought her here, the courage, the mistakes, and the lessons learned. And she realized that the veil's challenge was not just about knowledge but about growth. Jaren faced visions of humanity's potential, both its light and shadow. He saw what humans could achieve if they acted with wisdom, and what they might lose if they chose recklessness. Yet even in these visions, the veil showed encouragement, revealing that humans' greatest strength was their ability to learn, adapt, and persevere. Ensign Rila encountered visions of collaboration and trust, understanding that the veil valued harmony among those who sought knowledge. The chamber's light seemed to resonate with her realization, confirming that the lessons were being absorbed. Hours, or perhaps moments, passed, and the aurora approached the core of the chamber. The central sphere pulsed with increasing intensity, projecting a vision of a cosmic structure vast beyond comprehension. It was a network connecting countless worlds, civilizations, and stars, a living map of intelligence, learning, and possibility. This is the Veil's purpose, Jaren whispered. It preserves knowledge, tests understanding, and prepares those capable of using it wisely. Humans, we can do this. We can rise to the challenge. Lyra felt a surge of pride and awe. The Council's law had warned against contact with the Veil, but humans were not like other species. Their courage, curiosity, and adaptability allowed them to perceive what others could not. And now, in this chamber of ancient intelligence, they were proving it. Suddenly, the Veil's pulse intensified, sending waves of energy through the aurora. The crew felt a surge of awareness, as if the chamber itself were alive and acknowledging their achievements. Each challenge completed, each lesson learned, had been recognized. The Veil was no longer testing. They had earned its trust. "Captain," Rila said, her voice filled with wonder, "it's opening something. A passage. Deeper into the lattice." Lyra nodded, determination steadying her. "Then we follow. Carefully, boldly, and together. Humans have listened, understood, and acted. Now it's time to see what comes next." The ship moved forward into the new pathway, the light twisting around them in patterns that suggested guidance, invitation, and promise. The chamber pulsed in rhythm with the crew's hearts, each beat strengthening the connection between humans and the Veil. As they advanced, a new vision appeared, a human hand reaching toward a distant star, surrounded by threads of light that represented knowledge, courage, and responsibility. It was a simple image, yet powerful, symbolizing humanity's potential to bridge the impossible. Jaren's eyes glowed. "It's showing us our role. We're not just learners, we're participants. Humans have the power to shape the universe if we act with wisdom." Lyra took a deep breath. "Then we continue, step by step, choice by choice, together." The lattice shifted again, revealing a chamber even more magnificent than the last. The central sphere now glowed with a pure, serene light, surrounded by countless smaller spheres representing civilizations, discoveries, and possibilities. It was a testament to knowledge, understanding, and the potential of those willing to rise to the challenge. The Veil had guided them, tested them, and now it offered them insight, wisdom, and responsibility. Humans had proven themselves capable, not through recklessness or force, but through listening, understanding, and courage. Jaren smiled, turning to the captain. "We've done what no one else could. We've shown the Veil that humans can rise to the challenge." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the radiant light. "And this is only the beginning. The universe is vast and its secrets are many, but we've taken the first steps and humanity's path forward is clear." The chamber pulsed gently, a rhythm that seemed to echo across space and time, acknowledging the humans' achievement. The aurora floated in the heart of the lattice, the crew united, aware of their responsibility, and filled with hope for the future. The whisper of the Veil had become a conversation, and humanity, through courage, curiosity, and wisdom, had earned the right to speak. The aurora floated at the heart of the Veil, surrounded by a lattice of radiant energy that stretched beyond comprehension. The central sphere pulsed with a serene glow, each beat resonating with the rhythm of the universe itself. Captain Lyra HFY stood at the observation deck, her eyes reflecting the vibrant light, her mind steady but full of awe. Jaren Voss leaned beside her, his fingers lightly brushing the glass. "We've come far," he whispered, voice filled with wonder. "But I feel there's more, something waiting to be revealed." Lyra nodded. "The Veil isn't just a teacher. It's a guide, a keeper, and perhaps a test for everything humanity can be. We've proven ourselves capable, but the universe always has more lessons." The chamber shifted subtly. Threads of light twisted into shapes that suggested doors, gateways, and passages deeper into the lattice. Each pulse of energy seemed to speak directly to the humans aboard the ship. "Are you ready?" Can you handle what comes next? Rila's voice broke the silence. Captain, the sphere. It's forming an image. Something important. All eyes turned to the central sphere. The glow condensed, forming a projection of a vast galaxy, unlike any they had charted before. At its center lay a planet that shimmered with life, energy, and possibility. Cities of crystal and light dotted its surface. Rivers of luminescent water flowed through vibrant forests, and beings of radiant energy moved harmoniously across the land. It's showing us a world untouched by conflict or fear, Jaren said softly, a civilization that flourished because it learned to act wisely, responsibly, and with curiosity. It's the Veil's vision of what's possible. Lyra felt a swell of emotion. And it's asking humans, asking us, to understand this, to carry the lessons forward. The chamber pulsed, sending waves of gentle energy through the aurora. Each crew member felt it deep in their chest, a connection not just to the Veil but to the universe itself. The whispers were no longer distant, they were a symphony of understanding, encouragement, and guidance. It's trust, Jaren said. The Veil is trusting us to choose wisely, to act with responsibility, to show that humans are capable of greatness. Lyra studied the projection carefully. The Council feared this moment. They feared humans would fail, but they underestimated what humans can do when they listen, learn, and act with courage. The chamber shifted again, revealing threads of light that extended toward the projected planet. The paths were intricate, filled with challenges, but they glowed with a warmth that invited exploration rather than fear. The Veil seemed to communicate silently. Will you go forward? Will you carry what you've learned? Jaren extended his hand, letting his thoughts flow freely to the Veil. We are ready. We will listen. We will understand. We will act wisely. The threads shimmered, opening a passage toward the planet. The aurora moved forward, the crew feeling a rhythm that guided them like a heartbeat, steady, strong, and full of promise. As they approached the planet, visions of its people appeared, beings living in harmony with their environment, their curiosity leading to incredible discoveries, their courage guiding them through challenges. The Veil's message was clear. Intelligence without wisdom is fragile, but intelligence combined with courage, understanding, and responsibility can shape entire worlds. Lyra's heart raced. This is not just knowledge, she said. This is a responsibility. The Veil is showing us what humanity could become, what the universe could become if humans rise to the challenge. Jaren nodded. And we have the chance to learn, to grow, and to bring that understanding back to our world. To the stars we've yet to explore. Rila pointed at the console. Captain, the sphere is pulsing faster. I think it's offering us more than just visions. It wants us to act, to interact with the energy, to understand not just what is, but what could be. The crew realized the Veil was presenting the final challenge, the opportunity to engage directly with its energy, to shape understanding, to demonstrate that humans were capable of guiding knowledge with care. Jaren stepped forward, his eyes closed, letting his mind merge with the Veil's rhythm. Slowly, the threads of energy began to twist and form shapes that responded to his thoughts, his intentions, his courage. The chamber pulsed in acknowledgement, signaling that the humans were ready to participate fully. Captain, Rila whispered. It's amazing. We're shaping it, responding to it. The Veil, it's learning from us as much as we are learning from it. Lyra smiled, her heart steady. That's what humans do best. We learn, we adapt, and we rise to challenges. And when we act with wisdom, the universe itself listens. The chamber of radiant energy responded, forming a bridge of light between the aurora and the projected planet. Threads of energy extended like welcoming hands, inviting them closer. The Veil's whispers became a melody of hope, understanding, and encouragement. As they advanced, the sphere projected a vision of the human's journey. Moments of courage, curiosity, and wisdom that had guided them through the Veil. Each choice, each act of understanding was recognized and preserved. The Veil acknowledged not just their actions, but their intentions, their growth, and their willingness to learn. Jaren's voice broke the silence, filled with reverence. We've done it, Captain. We've shown the Veil that humans are capable, not perfect, but willing, curious, brave. Lyra nodded. And that willingness is what matters. The Council feared humans would fail because they could not see our potential. But the Veil can, and now, so can we. The aurora hovered above the projected planet, the threads of energy surrounding it like a halo of light. The veil pulsed gently, as if breathing, acknowledging the humans' achievements. The crew realized that this was more than discovery. It was a partnership. They had earned the veil's trust, and in return, they were given the chance to learn, grow, and shape understanding. The chamber pulsed one final time, sending waves of energy that infused the Aurora and its crew with insight, perspective, and hope. Visions of future exploration, collaboration, and discovery filled their minds. The veil was not a barrier, it was a guide, a teacher, and a repository of possibilities waiting for those willing to listen. Rila looked at the captain and Jaren. "Captain, it's showing us a path back, a way to bring this understanding to our world. To the stars we travel next." Lyra took a deep breath. "Then we follow it, carefully, wisely, and with courage." The Aurora moved along the glowing threads, leaving the chamber of radiant energy behind. The lattice of the veil began to fade, its pulse growing gentle and calm. The crew felt a sense of completion, understanding, and awe. They had crossed boundaries that no other species dared, and they had done so with courage, wisdom, and curiosity. Jaren whispered to the veil as they departed, "We will honor what you have shown us. We will learn. We will act. We will share your wisdom." The veil responded in subtle pulses, acknowledging their promise. It had observed, guided, and tested, and now it entrusted its knowledge to those who had proven worthy. As the Aurora emerged from the veil, the stars returned, distant but welcoming. The galaxy stretched before them, vast, mysterious, and full of possibility. The crew felt a deep sense of connection, not just to the universe, but to the potential humanity held within it. Lyra turned to Jaren. "You've changed the course of our journey, not just through bravery, but through understanding. Humans, they truly are remarkable." Jaren smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "We've always been remarkable, Captain. We just needed a chance to show it." The Aurora continued its voyage, carrying not just explorers, but bearers of understanding, wisdom, and hope. The veil had been broken, not with violence, but with a whisper, a choice, and a willingness to listen. And somewhere deep within the lattice, the ancient intelligence pulsed in quiet acknowledgement, curious to see how humanity would use the knowledge, courage, and insight it had been entrusted with. For the humans aboard the Aurora, the journey had only just begun. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, challenges, and opportunities. But they had learned that with courage, wisdom, and curiosity, no law older than the stars could limit their potential. The whisper that broke the law older than the stars themselves had become a voice of hope, courage, and understanding. And humanity had answered it. The stars stretched endlessly before them, waiting, and the humans aboard the Aurora were ready to meet the future.